Today on Bridges, we're going to talk about healing from life's deepest hurts. I'm Monica Schmelter, and I'm so glad that you joined me for Bridges today, where we bring you hope for the journey. My guest today is Kimberly Haar, and she is a licensed therapist, an author, a speaker, and her book is Healing from Life's Deepest Hurts. And Kim, it's good to have you on Bridges.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I think when I think about healing and people going through trauma, I'm so grateful, for the work that God does in our lives if we choose to follow that road. Have you had a personal experience with trauma?
I absolutely have. Back in 2017, I had been single for 4 years. My first marriage, I'd been married 23 years, and I divorced after 23 years because of ongoing infidelities. And I decided in 2013 I could no longer stay in my marriage. But because I had 4 children, I decided to just take 4 years and just be mom for 4 years.
Sure.
But in 2017, I decided it was time for me to put myself out there, begin dating again. And I met a man on April Fool's Day. And we both knew almost immediately this was it. And we saw each other almost every day for a month. And during that time, he told me he knew he wanted to marry me. I knew I wanted to marry him.
Really? So it was just like instant, like love right away?
It was almost love right away. He was an engineer, and I laughed because he told me he asked Google how long you need to know somebody before you know you're in love. So he was smitten.
What did Google say?
It wasn't fast enough.
Okay,
I think it was something like 6 months, and I told him to ask Siri.
Okay.
But so we knew. He told me, he said, I want to marry you. And 4 weeks after I met him, my ex-husband asked me to meet with him to talk about our adult children. This was not uncommon. I had done it many times, but this time when I went to meet him, he asked me about me seeing him again. And
like in a romantic way?
Giving him an opportunity for us to get back together. And I told him, I said, I've moved on. I'm dating somebody very seriously. And he looked at me and he said, maybe I'm going to have to go talk to that man. And I didn't realize it, but my ex-husband had been stalking me. And so when I left my ex-husband's home, I called Andrew, one, because I didn't want my ex-husband to scare him away. And I just said, hey, this is what he said. I said, would you be willing to fight for me? And he said, absolutely, because you're worth it. And little did I know that within 24 hours, Andrew was going to be fighting, not just for me, but he was going to be fighting for his life.
What happened?
I went home, went to bed, and something stirred inside of me and just said, lock your bedroom door. And so I got up, I locked my bedroom door, and at 2...
Do you normally lock your bedroom door?
No.
No.
I was living alone, empty nesting, so I locked my house, but not my bedroom door.
Of course, of course.
And I woke up at 2:30 in the morning to my bedroom door coming down, crashing off the hinges. My ex-husband had broken in. He was intoxicated. He had a gun in his hand. And for 4 hours, I was assaulted. After the assault, he told me he was going to kidnap me as punishment for ruining his life. And he was going to make me watch him murder the man I had just started dating. So we drove to the new man's house, to Andrew's house. He looked over at me, my ex-husband. He got some bullets, the gun, and he said, now you can go do what you need to do. And he left the keys in the ignition. So I made a getaway, not before I heard 3 gunshots. I knew there was no way Andrew was going to survive. And I escaped to a local super center and called 911. And later on, everything, my ex-husband was apprehended, and I was taken to an emergency room where I learned Andrew had been shot 10 times.
10 times?
He had been shot 10 times. And I had met Andrew's adult children one time, just one of them. And his one son called my cell phone, and my adult daughter answered the phone. And he said, we wish your mom well, but we just think our parents need to go their separate ways. And my heart sank because, I knew Andrew was in and out of surgeries, but I didn't know if he was going to make it. And because it was a crime scene, he was under an assumed name. So I had no way of finding him in the hospital.
Oh.
So I did not hear from Andrew for almost 4 to 6 weeks.
My goodness, but he did make it.
Andrew survived. He did survive. During that 4 to 6 weeks, I immediately left the hospital and I stayed with my parents for a couple nights because there was no way I was going to go back to my house. It was no longer my home.
Well, it wouldn't feel safe.
It did. I did not feel safe. I was very numb. Lots of emotions were going through me. I was angry, scared, numb.
Of course.
And I had an uncle and aunt that were going to Canada for the summer, and they offered me the use of their home for the summer.
Oh, how wonderful.
And when I went there, there was a beautiful big pergola in the backyard. And when I saw it, something inside me just told me this is where I was going to meet Jesus. Mm-hmm. This is where my healing was going to begin. And I would go lay on my face on the cement floor and I would just weep and weep. And I told the Lord, I said, I have nothing in me. I have no words in me. I am so broken. I am so empty. And I said, but I know there's a scripture in Zephaniah that says you sing over us. And I said, Lord, I'm asking you to sing life back into my body. And I just began playing praise and worship music, and I let that begin to fill me up. And so during that 4 to 6 weeks is really where a lot of that healing began. I did hear from Andrew again.
You did?
It was about 6 weeks later, mm-hmm. and I was at the pergola drinking my coffee. And I looked down and there was a Facebook Messenger message. I've never been so thankful for Facebook Messenger messages.
My goodness. Okay.
Because his kids had taken my phone number out of his phone.
Oh.
And so all it said was, hey, I'm alive. And I thought, how do you respond to that? And so I said, yay. And I asked if I could go see him. And he said, no, he was getting ready to go in the hospital for another surgery because some of his wounds had infections in them. And he said, I'll contact you after the surgery over the weekend. And so I waited. Mm-hmm. And it was maybe 3 or 4 days, and I got another Facebook Messenger post, and it said a visit would be nice.
Oh.
And so I went up to the hospital. We arranged for me to sneak in when his kids weren't there. I was 50, he was 53, and we were sneaking around our adult children.
Right. And you realize, though, like, they're just scared for their dad.
Absolutely. I don't blame them a bit.
It's understandable, but at the same time, it's not leaving you in the best position with the man that you love and that loves you, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I can only imagine they probably thought it was something from Jerry Springer because Dad's met a woman. 4 weeks later, he's shot by a man 10 times. So I don't blame them at all.
Yeah, I'm laughing, just a nervous reaction. None of it is funny. It's just...
Well, looking back now, I can see there were moments of humor. And so when I opened the hospital room to where Andrew was, mm-hmm. I looked at him and I said, where does this leave us? Because I knew we were going to get married. And he said, I don't know. He said, I've seen the felony charges. He goes, I know what happened to you, and you're going to really be messed up. And he goes, I know what happened to me, and I'm going to be messed up. And something came over me, and I shook my finger in his face, and I said, Andrew Haar, you will never meet another woman like me. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting in his hospital bed with him. Oh. And 4 weeks later, we were engaged, and 4 months later, we were married, and we have now been married for 8 years.
Wow.
And it's been a beautiful story of restoration, although the real healing was what happened in between.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the marriage. And
thank you.
I love it when a story has a happy ending. That's just the best. And saying you'll never meet another woman like me, I give you props and all the credit in the world for saying that. And I could understand why he's scared too.
Absolutely.
Because this is the thing, the book, Healing Life's Deepest Hurts and Recovering from mm-hmm. Trauma. People do get stuck in trauma. They do get messed up. I mean, you have a beautiful story, and I know that, you're a licensed therapist mm-hmm. and speaker and an author, but at the same time, you're a person just like the rest of us. And a lot of times, we don't know how to move forward in mm-hmm. trauma. So God gave you your aunt and uncle's house and that backyard space. how does a person, like if they've been through
Yeah.
trauma, Kimberly, what do they do?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is that, as a therapist, I often tell my clients that there's lots of kinds of trauma. There's the big trauma, big T trauma is what it's called, with the things like, kidnappings, assaults, deaths, tornadoes, fires. Those are your big T trauma. But then there's little T traumas, and those can be betrayals by friends. They can be divorces. They can be anything that impacts us in the way we see ourselves, God, and the world, and it shakes our security. And so it doesn't have to be dramatic in order for it to be trauma. And when someone goes through trauma, there is a point of having to make a decision that, I didn't know how I was going to heal, but it began with a decision. And I knew that no matter what it took, I was going to do the work. And so in the beginning days, it was very practical things. It was things like taking care of my body. It was getting good nutrition. It was making sure I got out of bed, because you just feel so numb. You don't want to get out of bed. You want to isolate.
I would think so. I think that there would be a lot of fear.
There was a lot of fear. Yeah, there was a lot of fear. There was a lot of just kind of the whole world didn't feel safe anymore. There was a loss of an innocence of the world.
Right, because no one had ever broken in the house before. And I think if you had not locked that bedroom door, at least the lock allowed you to hear the door come down, so you were woken up.
I am convinced that is what saved my life. Because had I not heard that bedroom door, because when it came down, I sat straight up. And so I was awake, I was alert, I hung on every word, and God gave me a gift of calm. Because in that moment, I remember telling myself, because the first thing my ex-husband told me is that he had come from killing my mom and dad. Now, he had not. But
so he lied.
But I didn't know that. And so in that moment, I told myself, I said, put it on the shelf. You can grieve it later. There's nothing you can do. You just have to stay really intent on what his words are to keep you alive. And my words were, Lord, just keep me alive, because my family's going to need me.
And he did keep you alive. We've got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't give in. God's word says you're an overcomer. It takes training, it takes discipline. And so when you're fighting that good fight of the faith, you take your story, whatever it is, and you saturate it in faith, and you fight for it.
Visit MonicaSchmelter.com to schedule Monica to speak at your next event.
Finding hope in today's life is not always easy. Bridges with Monica Schmelter is making it simple. You can now listen to podcast episodes on popular platforms like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Life Audio, and more by searching for Monica Schmelter to find God's hope for your journey.
If you enjoy watching Bridges, you can join Monica on Facebook for all the extras. Just visit Facebook and search for Monica Schmelter TV. At Monica Schmelter TV, you'll get a look behind the scenes. You'll learn secrets from the studio. And you'll be among the first to know what's coming up next on Bridges. Best of all, you can connect with Monica for prayer and share what topics you'd most like to see on Bridges. Monica would love to connect with you.
We're talking today about healing from life's deepest hurts, and that is also the title of a book that my guest, Kimberly Haar, wrote. And, Kim, you saw me during the break, my goodness, what, I want to say riveting, but just scary, traumatic story, what you went through. And yet, even in that moment, you thought to yourself, I'm going to do what I need to do to stay alive.
In that moment, and I want to say that sometimes I get asked, where's God when bad things happen? And in that moment, I had just survived 4 hours of assault, and I was laying on my bed, and all of a sudden I recognized a presence in the room. And I recognized this presence as a sad presence, but I knew it was the presence of God. And it was almost like I could feel the hand of God just holding mine. And I knew in that moment that if I died, I would not have died alone. And fear left me at that moment. And You know, in the forgiving, or in the actually the healing part of everything that I went through, one of the things I say that it began with a choice, but the day I was in the emergency room, my face was unrecognizable.
That's how much you were beaten?
I had been beaten. My face was unrecognizable. And I was asked later by my oldest daughter, she said, "Mom, do you remember what you said that day to me in the emergency room?" And I said, "No, I don't remember." And she said, "Mom, you said, promise me you won't let this make you bitter." And then I met up with a detective that had been assigned to my case a year after everything happened. And she said, "Kim, do you remember what you said to me in that emergency room?" And I said, "No, I don't remember much of that day." And she goes, "You looked at me and you said, I will not let this experience go to waste. I will be a better therapist because of it." And the last words I ever spoke to my ex-husband, it was before he kidnapped me. He looked down at me. The intoxication was wearing off. And he said, "Tell me the truth. You could never forgive me." And I knew that I did not want to live my life angry, bitter, unforgiving, and I didn't know how, but I made the comment to him. I said, "You're right, you have gone too far. There's no going back." I said, "But I want you to know that this day I will forgive you." And those were the very last words I ever spoke to my ex-husband. Mm-hmm. And that night, though I was angry, mad, I don't want to give the impression that it was just a decision and I was all fine, because there was lots of working out to do. Mm-hmm. But that very first night, I prayed for my ex-husband when he went to jail. I prayed he wouldn't be scared, and that the angels would surround him, and that he would sense God's presence.
That's an attitude that only the Holy Spirit could give you. And you're right, though, it does start with a choice. We have to determine in our life that we're going to do things God's way. And you had the presence of mind. You felt God with you. And I've heard many people say that too. Why does God let bad things happen to good people? And the thing is, we don't know. Whatever kind of answer we would want to give is not going to be enough, right?
That's right.
We don't know all the things that happen in this broken world, but we know that we have a friend that sticks closer than a brother. That's what we know. And that he's not afraid of our mess. He's not afraid of our trauma. And even though you said to him, "I forgive you," you're also saying you still had emotions to work through, and your physical body had to heal. Because I think sometimes as Christians, we give the impression, "Oh, I just forgive you and we're all done. Everything's good. Nice bow." No. And if somebody has beaten you up and assaulted you and shot the man that you love, it's not going to just be "I forgive you" and rainbows and bows.
Well, I don't remember if I said "I forgive you" or "I will forgive you," because it was a declaration. You know, I think of David in the Bible in Psalms, when David would lament and he would tell the Lord, "Where are you? I feel like you're ignoring me. My prayers are going up to heaven." But then he would always make a declaration afterwards, and he would say things like, "But my soul will bless you. But you are worthy." And so it's not that we don't have feelings, because God gave us our feelings. And he gave us to feel them. It's just that we don't let our feelings determine and dictate what we're going to do.
That's right.
And so that was a declaration of, I will heal and I will forgive no matter how long it takes. And sometimes even now I can be reminded of something and I get to remind myself, you know what, I've made a choice to forgive.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that. There are things in my life that if they come back up, I could get all mad and hurt and all of that again. I've heard people talk about trauma that happened 25 years ago, and they talk about it as if it happened that day, that moment, like they've carried it all of that time. So, you know, we've talked, you're a licensed therapist, but also a person. In your book, Healing from Life's Deepest Hurts, how do you help someone kind of process? They might not have the presence of mind that you did to say, "You'll never meet another woman like me. I will forgive you."
Sure.
But it's not too late, right?
It's absolutely not too late. There is no story that is too broken. God is in the restoration business, in the redeeming business. And where trauma can rewrite our stories, because trauma rewrote my story. I would not have written my story that way. Where trauma rewrites our story, it doesn't have to steal the ending. And that's the part of recognizing, not getting stuck in that why me. Because nobody would have blamed me if I stayed stuck in that why me, but it doesn't get you anywhere. It's allow yourself, now it's important to allow yourself the time to grieve. You know, I based my book on Ecclesiastes that talks about there's a time and season for everything, because there is a time to grieve and there's a time to mourn and there is a time for that. But there's also a time to get up, and there's a time to laugh again, and there's a time to dance. And so it's that we don't have to stay stuck in our pain. And the Lord just meets us wherever we are. Because when I went to him with I went to him with anger, with frustration. God, where are you? Why did you do this? I even tried to tell him I really trusted him, but then I told him what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And I said, and Lord, I'm trusting you. And it was like I finally had to get to the point where I said, Lord, I'm scared to trust you. I don't trust you. Because what if you don't give me what I want? And it was really in getting real. The Lord never chastised me for my honest. It's like he just drew me into his arms, and it was, I'm asking you to help me learn to trust you. And before I ever heard from Andrew again, I had gotten to a place where it was, Lord, and I told him, if I don't get what I want, I'll probably complain a little. I'm just warning you. I'm probably, it's gonna take me a bit. But I'm going to be okay, because I do trust your goodness. I do trust that you see what I don't. And that's the part of healing, is really coming to the Lord, not running away from him. Too many people, when they go through hard things, they run away from God, they blame God. And instead it's running to him, because he's the ultimate healer.
He is. You know, he's the master physician. He's the great physician. And he made us, and he knows how to heal us. We do, though, like, he never invades our free will.
That's
we do
right.
have to invite him. We have to make a choice, even if that's not what we feel.
That's right.
Right? Because I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
but I don't have to feel it.
That's right.
And then journey along that way. Now, you talked about processing grief and grieving, and you know, there's a time for everything under the sun. Is there a timeline for grief or processing?
No, there is not a timeline. Too many people try and put a cookie cutter, or they will hear things like, well, you should be over this by now.
Right.
And it's not about a timeline, it's just doing the next right step. And if you continue doing the next right step, and so one day it may be inviting, you know, a friend over to actually be with somebody, because we want to isolate in pain. But it's just doing the next right step. And as long as you're doing that, and it's not linear, it doesn't mean you'll take 3 steps forward and 1 step back. It may be 3 steps forward and 3 steps back. But then the next day, you just get up and you do it again, and you do it again. And I included a lot of tools in the back of my book called Tools for Growth and Healing. And they're ones that I've used with my clients, but they're also ones that I used myself. And those are everything from the power of music, because God uses music to heal us. It's the power of partnering with God's word. It is the power of gratitude, the power of friendship and community, the power of journaling, the power of therapy. I mean, being a therapist, you know, God is the ultimate healer, but therapy is one of the tools he can use.
Absolutely.
And the very second day, it was like the first day I called my pastor, the second day I called my therapist.
Because we need outside help. Just like your body, after being assaulted, needed to be cared for.
That's right.
Your emotions and who you are as a woman needs to be cared for.
That's right.
So it's not bad to go get therapy. I remember I go for counseling many different times in my life, and I was sitting in the lobby of this Christian counseling center, and this lady said, Monica Schmelter, you're here. And I said, yes, so are you. Like, we're just people, right?
That's right.
And we need help, and sometimes we need someone who's skilled and objective And confidential. That's another thing.
That's
Just
right.
confidential, where you can say what you need to say
Yeah.
without any fear of judgment, but have them help guide you along.
That's right.
So even as a therapist, you went and
Even
got
as
therapy.
a therapist, I knew that a therapist wasn't going to heal me, but they were going to walk beside me to make sure that I kept going in the right direction. I just needed somebody to cheer me on, and that's what I got.
Because I think about what you said about the tools and resources in your book, Healing from Life's Deepest Hurts. You know, it's important to know that it's not just a straightforward ahead journey, that for all of us, trauma, even habits that we want to change,
Yeah.
right? We have to give ourselves grace. We might take a few steps
right.
forward and more steps back, but then we get up and we try it again. And part of that persistence and that consistency is what grows our character and helps us see God working in our lives. So it's not a cookie cutter.
That's right.
Yeah, we can't give people 3 tips on how to get over trauma.
No, it's really being honest with yourself. It's being honest with yourself. It's being honest with God. You know, I smile now when I think back to the journaling that I did, and especially working through forgiveness. And man, I'm not proud of those journals, because some of the things I wrote, it was like, I didn't feel like forgiving. But again, those all went back to decisions that we make.
Yeah. And you allowed yourself to write it.
I did. I wrote it because when everything happened 8 years ago, it was all over the news. I had now my name was not in the news, but there was enough description. People knew it was me. And I had no choice over what people knew about my story. All they knew, here was a woman that was kidnapped, assaulted, and hurt. And I didn't want that to be my story.
Yeah.
I wanted my story to be, yes, here was a woman that was hurt, but the real story was that there was healing after that. And you can smile and laugh and have a wonderful life and walk in healing. Yeah. That was the story I wanted people to know.
That's awesome. We're out of time, and you're doing just that, right? You are living a wonderful life. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'll be back in just a moment with Hope for the Journey.
Finding hope in today's life is not always easy. Bridges with Monica Schmelter is making it simple. You can now listen to podcast episodes on popular platforms like iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Life Audio, and more by searching for Monica Schmelter to find God's hope for your journey.
Life can be hard and days can be long. So if you're looking for hope for the journey, MonicaSchmelter.com is a great place to get started. On MonicaSchmelter.com, you'll find Monica's teachings on demand. And if you're looking to really grow your faith, you'll find online extras are available with every teaching. So don't wait another day. Get started now at MonicaSchmelter.com and you will find hope for the journey.
The word why. It has only 3 letters, but such a big meaning. And especially when something goes wrong, we wonder why. And especially if it's something really big, like a betrayal, something that really hurts us. And we can get into, why God, why? And sometimes God doesn't answer us. He doesn't give us the why. So one of the first things we have to do is accept that if God doesn't tell us why, that we don't need to know. But what we can ask is what? God, what do you want me to do at this point? And when we ask God, what do you want me to learn? What do you want me to do? He will pour out. He will take us from that why, from that misery, to what He has for us next, to what He wants us to do. He never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He is always there. And when you progress from the word why to what, you will have more hope for the journey.